Have you ever wondered if you're doing things that quietly push people away, but no one dares to tell you? As we journey through life, we naturally settle into certain patterns. Some bring comfort and reflect wisdom, but others may become blind spots in how we present ourselves to the world. You might believe you're simply being authentic, but the reality? The people around you notice. And while they rarely voice their observations, these habits can profoundly impact how family, friends, and even strangers perceive you. In this story, we'll explore 12 subtle behaviors that emerge in our later years that everyone notices but few discuss openly. And I don't mean subtle in the physical sense. I'm referring to behaviors that gradually erode your dignity, create distance between you and others, and diminish the respect you've earned through decades of living. Each point invites reflection, not harsh self-judgment, but gentle self-awareness. Think of it as holding up a mirror and asking, is this still serving me, or is it creating unnecessary distance? Here's the encouraging news. Most of these habits can be changed with awareness. By the end of this narrative, you'll recognize potential blind spots and discover how to carry yourself with greater confidence, clarity, and grace in your later seasons of life. So stay with me, because small adjustments could dramatically improve how others experience you and, more importantly, how you experience yourself. Let's begin. Overlooking personal care. One of the first things people silently observe but rarely mention is when someone begins neglecting their personal care. I'm not referring to major neglect, it's the subtle signs. Wearing the same outfit multiple days in succession, hair that hasn't seen a brush, fingernails that have grown just a bit too long, a subtle odor that lingers after you've left the room. These may seem inconsequential, but they communicate volumes about your self-perception. Personal care isn't merely about cleanliness. It reflects how we present ourselves to the world. In younger years, these habits often happen automatically. But as energy wanes and routines shift, some begin thinking, why bother? That subtle shift doesn't go unnoticed. People around you observe, though they'll rarely mention it directly. Family members especially hesitate, not wanting to wound your pride. Instead, they adjust their behavior, sitting slightly farther away, shortening visits, avoiding physical closeness. What they're responding to isn't you personally, it's the message your self-care conveys. It suggests you've partially surrendered, that perhaps you don't value yourself as you once did. Here's the unspoken reality. When you stop caring for yourself, people unconsciously begin treating you with less warmth and respect. This doesn't mean dressing fashionably or wearing fragrances daily. But clean clothing, well-kept hair, and trimmed nails make a significant difference. They tell the world, I'm still present, I still care, I still respect myself and you. People respond, first to your energy, then to your words. And personal care clearly reflects that energy. When you maintain your appearance, it silently invites others to approach you with kindness, closeness, and dignity, a message worth conveying. Speaking without consideration. As we age, something curious happens. That internal voice whispering, perhaps don't express that aloud, grows quieter, sometimes disappearing entirely. You begin speaking more freely, perhaps even proudly thinking, I've earned the right to express whatever I wish. While this frankness may feel liberating, those around you often experience something entirely different: discomfort. There's a delicate balance between honesty and bluntness. Over time, if you find yourself making comments that cause others to pause, shift uncomfortably, or avoid eye contact, it might indicate your words aren't merely truthful, they're harsh. Perhaps you've caught yourself commenting on someone's weight, appearance, relationship, or parenting choices. Maybe you've dismissed concerns with, I'm just being honest, or, in my generation people weren't so sensitive. But here's the reality. Honesty without compassion simply registers as criticism. And those receiving such remarks rarely confront you directly. Instead, they gradually withdraw. You might notice fewer invitations to gatherings or shorter phone conversations. They care about you but are protecting themselves from the sting of careless remarks. This doesn't mean censoring every thought or walking on eggshells, but it does suggest pausing before speaking to ask, is this helpful? Is this kind? Sometimes, what feels like speaking your truth actually releases frustration, and it impacts others more severely than you realize. A useful guideline. If you wouldn't want someone saying it to your grandchild, perhaps reconsider saying it to others. The beauty of aging is the wisdom you've accumulated. When that wisdom is expressed with kindness, people lean in, they listen, they deeply respect you. But when it's delivered with sarcasm or judgment, they begin disengaging, even when your intentions are positive. Your words carry power, perhaps, now more than ever. Use them to build connections, not create distance. If you're finding these insights valuable, please remember that awareness is the first step toward positive change. Your willingness to reflect shows remarkable character and a desire for meaningful connection in your later years. Wearing ill-fitting clothing. There's comfort in routine, enjoying the same breakfast, walking familiar paths, wearing clothes you've had for years. Consistency itself isn't problematic. But regarding clothing, what once appeared classic can eventually seem careless. You might not notice it yourself, but how your clothes fit, or don't, communicates much about your connection to the present moment. Pants hanging too loosely, shirts clinging too tightly, styles unchanged for decades, or shoes that have lost their shape. These aren't merely fashion choices. They quietly suggest you've stopped paying attention. While no one will directly address this, they notice it's not about following trends or dressing youthfully. It's about showing the world you still see yourself as someone worth caring for. When people observe an older adult in well-fitting, well-maintained clothing that reflects self-respect, they feel immediate admiration. It signals that this person remains engaged with life, not from vanity but from dignity. Consider this. Would you wear the same professional attire to an important meeting that you wore 25 years ago? Probably not. The same principle applies to everyday life. Our bodies change. Our coloring shifts, our energy evolves. Dressing to reflect your current self, not your past, demonstrates emotional presence and self-awareness. Some might say, why should I care what others think? I'm comfortable. That's valid. But comfort and dismissiveness aren't identical. You can be comfortable yet put together, relaxed yet respectful of your appearance. Even something as simple as properly fitting jeans or a shirt that complements your natural coloring can transform how people respond to you. Not because of the fabric itself, but because of what it represents, that you remain engaged, aware, and proud of who you are today. People may not compliment you directly. They might not mention it at all, but they notice, they smile more, they treat you with greater reverence because, like it or not, appearance creates first impressions. Even in our later years, those impressions matter. Monopolizing conversations. All desire to be heard, especially after accumulating decades of experience. But sometimes in our eagerness to share wisdom or ensure our viewpoint is understood, we forget to create space for others. It begins subtly. During conversation, someone mentions a topic you've encountered before. You interject with a story or advice. Before you realize it, 10 minutes have passed and no one else has spoken. This habit rarely stems from selfishness. Usually, it's rooted in a genuine desire to help or connect. But here's the issue. When we dominate conversations, we unintentionally silence those we care about. They won't tell you directly. Instead, they'll gradually distance themselves. Calls become less frequent. Conversations shorten. You'll sense the growing space between you without understanding its source. People need to feel both seen and heard, not lectured. When every interaction feels one-sided, it gradually erodes relationships, especially with younger generations who may already feel uncertain about connecting across age differences. The solution isn't speaking less, but listening more. Allow pauses. Ask more questions than you answer. Resist offering unsolicited advice. One of the most powerful conversational gifts an older person can offer is restraint. Not because you lack wisdom, but because others need to know their thoughts matter too. Ironically, the less you dominate, the more people seek your input. The more attentively you listen, the more they trust you. You become someone they want to engage with, not someone they brace themselves to encounter. In your next conversation, notice, are you truly listening or merely waiting to speak? That small awareness shift can transform your interactions. When people feel heard, they open up, they draw closer, they anticipate future conversations rather than dreading them. 5. Criticizing younger generations, it begins as a simple observation. You see a teenager absorbed in their phone and think, in my day, we actually conversed face to face. You witness someone in their 30s making choices you disagree with, and conclude they don't understand reality. Before long, these thoughts emerge in conversations with friends, family, even strangers. You might not realize it, but consistently criticizing younger generations sends a powerful message. It tells those around you, especially your children and grandchildren, that you're not interested in understanding them, that you're fixed in a time that no longer exists. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Every generation believes those following them are missing something essential. That's not new. But when criticism becomes your default response, people don't perceive you as wise. They see you as bitter. You might intend it humorously. You might believe you're simply stating obvious facts. But to listeners, especially those under 50, it often feels like rejection, as though you're dismissing their entire world, values, and lifestyle. The result? They stop sharing openly. They keep interactions superficial. They avoid deeper discussions because they anticipate judgment. Even while loving you, they maintain emotional distance. This doesn't mean agreeing with everything younger people do or embracing every new trend. But it does mean choosing curiosity over criticism, asking questions instead of making assumptions. When you shift from saying, young people today have it too easy, to asking, what challenges do you face navigating today's world? You create space for connection. You invite dialogue rather than division. Remember, your value doesn't come from comparing past to present, but from bridging them. Being the steady presence that connects generations, not the voice criticizing from behind. When younger people feel respected by you, they listen more attentively, they ask questions, they approach you not from obligation, but from genuine interest. You become not just the elder present, but the one they admire and trust, not for lectures, but for wisdom that listens before speaking. That's genuine influence. And it begins with releasing the need to criticize the present and embracing who you can still become. If you're finding these reflections valuable, remember that self-awareness is a gift at any age. Your willingness to consider new perspectives shows remarkable character and a desire for meaningful connection across generations. Disregarding modern social norms. There's a kind of social awareness that often goes unnoticed until it's absent. Speaking loudly on phones in public, standing uncomfortably close in queues, or playing media without headphones in shared spaces. While these behaviors might seem minor, they significantly impact how others perceive you. Such actions might have been acceptable decades ago. Then, people were more tolerant of loud conversations or unexpected behaviors. But social expectations evolve, and what once seemed harmless now creates discomfort in others. The challenging part? You might not realize you're doing it. No one directly addresses it with, could you lower your volume, or would you mind giving me some space? Instead, they'll exchange glances, avoid eye contact, or relocate. It's not personal, but it's real. Whether on public transportation, in cafes, or shopping, these small breaches of what's now considered common courtesy send a message. I'm unaware of how I affect others. People don't always give older adults the benefit of doubt. They often expect you to know better. So when they observe these behaviors, they don't attribute them to misunderstanding, but to disregard. That's not the impression you want to create. Fortunately, this is easily remedied. Begin noticing how others behave in public spaces, how they manage volume, navigate personal space, and use technology around others. Modern etiquette isn't about rigidity, it's about consideration. It demonstrates that you remain attuned to the world, engaged, and aware of your impact on others. That awareness builds respect. It tells people, I may be older, but I still pay attention, adapt, and care how others feel. This doesn't just improve how strangers respond, it transforms how your family perceives you. Grandchildren notice, neighbors notice. Their quiet admiration grows. In a world constantly rushing, someone who moves with awareness and carries themselves with subtle dignity stands out more distinctly than ever. Dwelling on health concerns, we've all heard the joke. Gather a few older adults and the conversation transforms into a contest of who has the worst knee, highest blood pressure, or longest medication list. While this might seem harmless or even relational, constantly discussing health problems gradually drains those around you. Here's the reality. Everyone understands aging brings physical challenges. You needn't pretend everything's perfect. But when conversations consistently return to pain, doctor visits, or upcoming procedures, people begin feeling like they're in a medical office rather than a relationship. For younger family members especially, these topics can feel overwhelming. They may not know how to respond, or they might feel helpless hearing about issues they cannot resolve. So instead of engaging more deeply, they withdraw, not from disrespect, but from emotional fatigue. You deserve empathy and to be heard. But when health becomes the centerpiece of your interactions, the dynamic shifts from connection to caretaking, from conversation to complaint. Think about the people you enjoy being around. Likely, they're not those who catalog every ache and medication. They're those who focus on what remains positive, who might mention a challenge but don't let it define the interaction. This doesn't mean hiding your struggles, but choose your audience, timing, and maintain balance. Share your health status, certainly, but also inquire about others. Discuss the book you're reading, neighborhood happenings, nature observations. Your life remains full of stories beyond medical charts, and people want to connect with you, not just your symptoms. You might be surprised how much lighter your relationships feel when health concerns don't dominate every conversation. When you focus on what you can do, what you enjoy, and what brings joy, you not only feel better, you help others feel better too. In a world already burdened, being someone who lightens the atmosphere, even slightly, is a beautiful medicine of its own. Clinging to outdated beliefs, one of the hardest patterns to recognize, especially as we age, is when our beliefs transform from windows to walls. We hold fast to ideas that once served us well, principles that shaped how we raised families, conducted business, and made sense of our world. But over time, if we're not careful, those beliefs can solidify into absolutes that no longer reflect our current reality. You might find yourself saying, "That's simply how things are," or "People are overly sensitive nowadays," or "Regardless of new research, I know what's correct." While you may feel confident in your perspectives, others hear something different. Resistance. The truth is, the world has changed and continues changing. Technology, culture, gender roles, mental health awareness, communication methods, everything evolves rapidly. When we stubbornly refuse to consider alternative viewpoints, it doesn't appear as wisdom but as unwillingness. Younger generations notice this but rarely confront you directly. Instead, they internally classify you as someone they cannot discuss certain topics with, someone who won't understand, someone closed-minded. That represents a significant loss of connection. Whether it's your grandchild questioning traditional career paths or your neighbor living differently than you understand, meaningful connection becomes possible when curiosity replaces judgment. Remaining open doesn't mean abandoning your values. It means willingly updating your understanding without compromising your core identity. It means creating space for new ideas, even when you don't fully embrace them. Consider this. Stubbornness often masks fear of irrelevance, of being left behind, that releasing old beliefs means losing part of yourself. But your relevance doesn't come from clinging to the past. It comes from courageously meeting the present. When you can say, "I hadn't considered that perspective," or "Tell me more about what that means to you," you open doors that people gladly enter. They feel safe. Sometimes you might even change your mind, discovering the younger person was right in unexpected ways. That humility and willingness makes people truly admire you, not because you possessed all answers, but because you remained a student of life even in later years. That's rare and powerful. If you're still engaged with these insights, I hope they're offering valuable perspectives. Self-reflection at any age demonstrates remarkable character and wisdom. 9. Moving without spatial awareness. As we age, our pace naturally changes. We slow down. We might feel less steady or more cautious with movement. That's entirely normal. But what often happens unconsciously is becoming less aware of how our movements affect those around us. You've likely observed it. Someone standing in the middle of a store aisle, cart sideways, completely blocking passage while examining a product. Or someone stopping abruptly in a crowded walkway, lost in thought. Or walking with a companion and gradually drifting into the path of oncoming pedestrians. Usually these behaviors aren't deliberately inconsiderate. You're simply focused on your task. But to others, especially those in a hurry or navigating confined spaces, it creates friction, small obstacles that complicate their day. The key point: people rarely say anything. They sigh, walk around you, perhaps glance briefly and continue. But over time, these small moments accumulate in how you're perceived. Others might begin seeing you as that person always in the way. Or they may quietly decide to avoid situations requiring walking beside you, shopping with you, or navigating public spaces together. Not because they dislike you, but because they feel they must manage you. To be clear, slowing down isn't the issue. The concern is awareness. You can move slowly yet remain respectful of shared space. You can pause to read something while staying to one side. You can walk carefully while remaining mindful of movement flow around you. This awareness is especially important in airports, busy sidewalks, shopping centers, or community gathering places. These are common spaces, and being considerate within them powerfully communicates that you're still attentive, still care about your impact on others. This kind of awareness represents a subtle form of grace. It tells people you're not merely focused inward, you're present, thoughtful, and considerate. Most people don't expect perfection. They simply hope for effort, awareness, consideration. When you demonstrate this, you stand out not as someone slower, but as someone considerate, someone who still moves through the world with dignity and a quiet sense of responsibility. That presence carries more influence than you might realize. 10. Making outdated humor. A healthy sense of humor is among the finest qualities to maintain into later years. It keeps your spirit light, makes others comfortable, and eases tension even in difficult moments. But not all humor ages gracefully. Some jokes, especially those that garnered laughter decades ago, can quietly alienate people today. You might be joking as you always have. Some sarcasm, a teasing remark, perhaps comments playing on old stereotypes or poking fun at someone's background, appearance, or choices. You might laugh while saying it, adding, "I'm just teasing," or "Come on, lighten up." But here's what's changed: the world around you. While humor once relied on highlighting differences, today people are far more sensitive to how words land, especially from older individuals. Younger generations navigate a culture emphasizing inclusion, empathy, and respect for diverse experiences. When jokes seem misaligned with those values, they don't register as amusing, but as disconnected or even disrespectful. They probably won't tell you directly. They'll laugh politely, then avoid close interaction. You'll sense the distance without understanding its source. This doesn't mean constant vigilance, it doesn't mean humor is forbidden. But it does suggest reconsidering before defaulting to certain joke types. Ask yourself, is this funny because it's clever, or because it diminishes someone else? The most effective humor, especially in later years, uplifts rather than discomforts. It brings lightness, not awkwardness. It shows you're not fixed in the past, but evolving alongside everyone else. Nothing builds connection faster than the ability to laugh at yourself. It demonstrates humility and perspective. It shows you're not trying to prove anything. You're simply enjoying the moment with others. When people recognize this, they relax. They engage. They begin seeing you not merely as the older person present, but as someone who still understands. Gentle humor carries you far, but humor that's thoughtful, self-aware, and somewhat updated for contemporary sensibilities. That keeps connection, pathways wide open at any age. 11. Feigning helplessness. When capable. Aging brings genuine challenges. No one disputes that. Things once done easily now require more time, care, sometimes assistance. But there's a distinction between needing help and defaulting to it unnecessarily. Over time, that distinction becomes increasingly apparent, though rarely addressed directly. Perhaps you've grown accustomed to saying, "Could you just handle this for me?" Or, "I don't understand any of this technology. I'll certainly make mistakes." Initially, such requests seem innocuous, but when they become patterns, especially for tasks you remain capable of performing, they gradually wear on those around you. Family members begin feeling like caretakers even when you're fully capable. Friends notice they're always the ones reaching, fixing, organizing. Though they smile and say, "No problem," internally they begin feeling something else: resentment. What's more complex is that sometimes this behavior is unconscious. It's not laziness, it's fear. Fear of doing something incorrectly. Fear of appearing foolish. Fear of falling behind. So you allow others to intervene. With each small surrender, your independence diminishes incrementally. But here's the truth. People admire effort more than perfection. They'd rather see you try and struggle slightly than surrender entirely. Your children, grandchildren, even neighbors feel proud when you demonstrate you're still engaged, still wanting to learn, move, participate. When you request assistance only when truly necessary, they trust you more. They don't feel manipulated or taken for granted. They feel honored to help because they know the request comes from genuine need, not habit. Maintaining your sense of agency isn't pretending you're decades younger. It's showing up with what you can do, asking clearly for what you cannot, and respecting the boundary between them. You'd be amazed how empowered you feel reclaiming small tasks, carrying your own belongings, figuring out new devices, following recipes independently. These small victories build confidence, reminding you and everyone around you that age may alter your capabilities, but doesn't remove your strength, will, or dignity. The people aging most gracefully aren't those who never seek help. They're those who know when to ask and when to stand tall and say, "I can manage this." 12. Insisting on always being right. We all appreciate feeling we've earned our place at the table, especially after decades of life experience, difficult choices, and lessons learned through struggle. It's understandable that many older adults eventually feel they have answers, that they've experienced enough to understand how things work. Often they do. But here's the complication. When the need to be right overshadows the need to connect, people stop listening. It might manifest in small ways: correcting someone's anecdote during dinner, insisting your approach is the only sensible one, dismissing new ideas, or disregarding others' opinions with, "Trust me, I know better." Initially, others might shrug it off or even laugh. But eventually, being around someone who must always be right becomes exhausting. People begin avoiding meaningful discussions. They withhold thoughts. They stop challenging you, not because you convince them, but because silence is easier. Ironically, many older individuals don't do this from arrogance. They do it seeking security, to feel they still hold authority in a rapidly changing world. But when being right becomes more important than being kind or curious, it backfires. Wisdom isn't possessing all answers. It's knowing when to offer perspective and when to let others explore theirs. It means holding opinions confidently but openly. Because here's an unspoken truth. The people we most admire aren't those who correct us. They're those who listen, reflect, and gently invite us to think differently without forcing it. When you stop trying to win every discussion, people actually approach you more frequently. They seek your opinion and value your feedback, not because you dominate conversations, but because your words carry calm, thoughtful weight. And when you do, speak because you're not speaking merely to win, your voice resonates more deeply, it endures. It matters. Eventually, the need to be right fades. What remains is how you made people feel. And when you create space for others to be heard, challenged, and uplifted, your presence becomes something they genuinely treasure, not merely tolerate. Final thoughts now that we've explored these 12 behaviors. Take a moment to reflect gently, without judgment. Which habits have quietly entered your daily life? Which surprised you? Which do you feel prepared to adjust, even slightly? This narrative wasn't meant to shame or criticize. It was created to offer something rare, honest insight wrapped in care. Because these behaviors don't make you a bad person, they're simply blind spots, patterns that develop gradually without our awareness. Once we recognize them, true strength emerges not in denying their existence but in saying, I see this, I can improve, I still have capacity to grow. That's what aging gracefully truly means. Not clinging to the past or resisting change, but entering each new day with self-awareness, grace, and the quiet strength of someone who still wants to connect, evolve, and bring warmth to others' lives. As you move forward, keep these signs in mind, not as a checklist but as gentle reminders. Ways to continue engaging with the world with dignity, presence, and the kind of character that leaves others feeling respected, comfortable, and inspired. Remember, it's never too late to shift how you move through life. Small changes in how you speak, listen, dress, joke, or interact can completely transform how people experience you and how you experience your place in the world. Thank you for joining this reflection. I hope you've discovered something valuable that inspires positive change. Your willingness to consider new perspectives speaks volumes about your character and your desire for meaningful connection in this season of life.